where I can just train and focus. I did not shut down all media requests. I simply wanted a slight adjustment, but it was denied. There had been $10 million allocated for the promotion of that event, is what they told me. So as a gesture of goodwill, I went and not only saved that $10 million in promotion money, I then went and tripled it for them. And all that with one tweet. He ended that statement by saying he is not retired in caps. Stephen A., should Dana let Conor McGregor fight at UFC 200?
I'm going to have to say yes. Here's what I want to say, Skip, Molly. Dana White is right here. He's doing nothing wrong. You sign a contract, you have promotional obligations. It's what uplifts the UFC and has assisted in allowing them to ascend to the American consciousness and beyond. The UFC is incredibly popular. Dana White is obviously largely responsible for that. His leadership, as far as I'm concerned, is not to be questioned. This is not anything against him. I don't think he's wrong for what he's doing because the rules need to be applicable to everybody. And I totally understand that. I'm just confessing to you, Skip, that when I read Conor McGregor's Facebook message yesterday, what hit home for me was a couple of things. No, I don't agree with him, you know, going off. I assume he was talking about ESPN, and then he mentioned some female who he's going to help her ratings or her get a raise or whatever. I think that was a bit excessive. But in a sport as violent as the UFC, you know, where literally your life is on the line every time you step inside that octagon, to him to suffer the loss that he has suffered, and to him to proclaim he's not cutting down all media requests or anything like that. He's just asking for a little latitude because at the end of the day, he's got to be in that octagon. He's got to go up against that guy. He's got to get back to doing what got him here to begin with. If he's trying to shut down all media requests and he only wants to show his face on fight night, that's different. But if he's saying that psychologically at this particular moment in time, he doesn't want to subject himself to this where he was, he needs to get himself in that place where he can be ready to avenge the loss that he suffered from. I'm thinking about all the promotional things that he's done, the walking embodiment of being the ultimate promoter that he is and is capable of being. And I'm saying to myself, if there was ever a time that you could make adjustments, it would be now. Now, if you Dana White and you really want to send a message, dock half his pay. Make sure that there's a price that he's going to have to pay for being willing to do that. But to just flat out, you know, omit him from UFC 200 based on the message that I saw that Conor McGregor put out there, I'm thinking, could you make an adjustment this particular time around? Yeah, I don't really like it because you want the rules to be applicable to everybody, no exceptions, but that's not the real world. Exceptions are made every day for people, particularly the elite. And I think this is one of those occasions where it's called for.
Really? Interesting. Okay, I'm going to say what I said 2 days ago about how I view this from a distance. I thought this was a direct challenge to the authority, the dictatorial authority of one Dana White by his biggest superstar. I thought this was a direct affront, a power play on the part of Conor McGregor, basically saying, I'm bigger than you are. I'm more valuable than you are. You can't tell me what to do. I'm not going to play by the rules that the other fighters must play by promotionally. I'm going to do it my way, and because I lost, I'm going to cut off all promotion leading up to UFC 200. And Dana, to his credit, stepped up and said, nope, you're out. You're completely out. You are not going to be part of this event. And now you're telling me that because he backed off a little bit, you're saying that Dana should back off a little bit. There should be a compromise here. Man, you're going to open a Pandora's box for all the rest of them. Are you sure that Dana would want to do that? Because I'm not. If he wants to maintain an iron grip on this sport the way he does, I don't think he can compromise this one.
Well, listen, I don't think that Dana's going to compromise either, and that's certainly his right. And considering what he means to the sport and what he has done for the sport, in no way am I saying that Dana White is wrong. What I'm saying is that Conor McGregor comes back and he says he's not cutting off all media. He's asking for a little leeway because of the loss he suffered and what he's had to deal with since that time. And psychologically, he's just not ready to be the promoter that he's capable of being at this particular juncture. That's what I got from his Facebook message. He wasn't sitting there saying, I'm not going to do anything at all. He's saying that I don't want to do it right now. I'm trying to get my mind, my body, everything right to get myself ready for this encounter because I got to go out there and avenge what happened to me the first go round. And I'm also thinking along the line, Skip, that, again, I did point out Doc half his pay because I sincerely doubt that most dudes would be willing to give up half their money in the UFC just because they didn't show up for a promotional appearance. So you can provide an incentive to honor your commitment, or a disincentive, rather, to not honor your commitment by docking dudes' pay as opposed to simply saying you're not going to fight at all. That's what I'm saying. I'm not talking about Conor McGregor getting away scot-free for this. Make him pay a price, but also make sure you give us fans an opportunity to see him again in UFC 200 because we'd like to see it.
Okay, so who's more valuable going forward to UFC, Conor McGregor or Dana White?
Dana White.
Dana White.
Really?
Dana White. Yes.
I disagree with that, but I get where you're coming from. Maybe in the grand scheme of things because he has built this growing empire and his rules have helped build it, his promotional rules. I get that, but the biggest draw by far, maybe not by far, but he's had the top 3 live gates. Maybe I should say by far is Conor McGregor. Because when, to your point, when he decides to promote, he's by far the best promoter in the sport because he's the biggest, baddest talker in the sport, right?
But you asked me who's more valuable. You didn't ask me. In other words, if you're talking about for this particular event, then the fighter's more valuable. But I'm thinking about the UFC in totality. Dana White is the guy that makes sure the public gets the fights they want to see. He's the guy that holds folks accountable in terms of you're not going to be able to duck anybody. This is not going to be promoters running my sport or anything like that. We're going to give the people what they want to see. That's why I consider Dana White more valuable than any fighter, because you could be the greatest fighter in the world, but if you take your sweet time about fighting opponents, if you pick and choose who you want to fight and who you want to avoid and all of this other stuff the way that they do in boxing, then you're jeopardizing and compromising the sport. Dana White's presence alone ensures that that won't happen. And as a result, that makes him more valuable than any fighter.
If that's true, then he better toe that line and hold fast to his promotional rules. And going forward, he could say now, if you're willing to fulfill all your obligations that I set forth early on, leading up to 200, then I'd let him fight. But only that way. You can't compromise. You can't say, oh, if you'll just do one for me.
Well, we got to make sure we understand. It's not a hard and fast rule for Dana White to sit there and say, you're not fighting. Dana White sat up there and made this choice on his own, which he has every right to do. But if Dana White had said, okay, Conor McGregor's not going to show up to promote the fight, but he'll fight in UFC 200, and he was scheduled to get $1 million, and we're going to dock him $500,000, nobody was going to argue with that. So I'm not aware. I mean, I understand that Dana White is doing this, but I'm not aware that this is a written, hard, fast rule that if you don't show up for a promotional event, then you don't get to fight at all. I'm not sure about. I'm not saying that it's true, but I'm not sure that. I'm not sure about that. I have to ask Dana about that.
Okay, but if you dock him $500,000 or whatever, I think Conor McGregor would say, "See you later" to that one. And last quick point, I'm going to remind you what happens at the Super Bowl every year. Are those players not obligated to show up for almost about an hour on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, some on Monday, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
It's just the way it is. Boy, if you don't, you get fined.
And Marshawn Lynch showed up, but remember, Skip, if they don't show up, they're going to get fined.
Yep.
They're not going to be prohibited from playing in the Super Bowl.
No.
They'll get fined. That's the difference.
UFC.
Dana's saying we don't get to fight.
Yeah.
Yep. UFC 200, obviously a milestone fight. Their big ones was 4th of July weekend in Vegas. Again, I said this yesterday. I think Conor McGregor will be fighting. But we have a big one this Saturday. Can't wait for John Bones Jones, also Demetrius Johnson on that card. So that should be good. Coming up next on First Take, though, we're going to talk a little Rockets and Warriors. What should the Warriors do with Curry now? We'll get into that next.